So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our moderator for the panel, also a very well-known figure in innovation circles, Associate Professor Benjamin T, Vice President of Innovation and Enterprise at NUS Enterprise. Over to your good hands, Prof. Ben.
Thank you, Romy. Well, please have a round of applause. I think it's a fantastic day. All of you must be a little tired, but I must say I stand among giants here in commercialization and translation, as well as research. Being an academic myself, I must say the journey for commercialization is always never easy, all the more so coming out of deep tech research. And I'm really honored to be able to introduce our 4 speakers today. If I had to let them introduce themselves, they may take a very long time, so I'm going to make their lives a little easier today by giving a very short introduction to what they have done over their careers and the many achievements and even lives that they have saved. So let me first start with Professor Dario Campana, our winner of the Presidential Award in the Innovation Venture Creation this morning. Professor Dario Campana is the architect of modern CAR T cell therapy, and my wife always reminds me what CAR T stands for. He created the first anti-CD19 CAR that has now saved thousands of people with leukemia worldwide. What makes him uniquely valuable for our discussion today is really his track record, phenomenal track record of successful company building. He's taken companies public in the US and also founded Medisix Therapeutics right here in Singapore from our very own NUS IP. He holds the Mrs. Lee Kong Chien Chair in Advanced Cellular Therapy and won the prestigious Gabe Award for his groundbreaking work. The CAR T market today that he has helped create is worth over $120 billion, and I'm sure it will continue to grow. Thank you for being here, Professor Dario. Next, I would like to introduce Professor Abhik Roychoudhury, who has just proved that Singapore can compete with Silicon Valley on speed. Professor Abhik is our Provost Chair Professor of Computer Science, but more importantly, for our discussion today, he's co-founder of AutoCode Rover, an AI-powered software security startup that got acquired by Swiss company Sona in record time of 10 months. His research on automatic programming and AI agents has been cited over 16,000 times. Beyond citations, it's really his ability to translate that research into a commercial reality that makes him essential for today's conversation. He's now Senior Advisor at Sona Source, bringing Singapore deep tech to global enterprise software. Thank you for being here. Next, we have Professor Shao Huilin. She's a good friend and a colleague at the institute that I work at. Professor Shao Huilin is pursuing the holy grail of blood-based diagnostics for neurological diseases, and she's very close to achieving that holy grail. She's our Dean's Chair Associate Professor in Biomedical Engineering, and her startup, Sunbird Bio, has just raised $14 million for their Apex diagnostic platform. It can detect Parkinson's disease with blood samples of over 86% accuracy. Her personal story with her grandmother's struggle with dementia has inspired her mission and has proved that personal motivation combined with world-class science can drive breakthrough innovations. She's recognized as the Journal of Nanobiotechnology Rising Star of 2022, and her work is transforming how we think about early detection of neurological diseases. And finally, last but not least, we have our very own unicorn here. Professor Heng Phon just achieved what every deep tech entrepreneur dreams of, taking a company from university lab to $1 billion public listing. His company, Merexis, went public on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange in May this year at an over $1 billion valuation after 20 over years of patient value building towards this global impact. He's co-founder and chief scientific advisor of Merexis that has developed GastroClear, the world's first molecular blood test for gastric cancer detection. His story, from academia to public company founder, represents an impactful success story that Singapore's ecosystem needs a lot more of. So thank you. So can I have a round of applause for all our panelists today? Thank you very much. So let me just get the question rolling, but there is a QR code that they can flash where you can submit your questions. And if you're adventurous, feel free to raise out your hand. I'm sure a mic will be sent to you as well, right? So I'm going to start with our software security pioneer, Professor Abhik, whose 10-month miracle has indeed surprised us and actually impressed us as well. He probably can have gotten a much better deal, but he has gotten it acquired in just 10 months. So we were very curious and we met him through many months, and he is now based here in our building, developing the next breakthrough technology for software and AI. So I'd like to ask Professor Abhik, what were your 3 critical decisions that got your company, AutoCode Rover, acquired by Sona from lab to exit in 10 months?
Yeah, thanks, Ben. Yeah, and it's wonderful to be here, even though, as you said, I'm located in this building currently. So the 3 things, I think first thing I would say, there was a very inspiring keynote today morning, and something very important was said there, that oftentimes when we build startups, we say it's 5 times better, 10 times better, but it would be just so much better if there is a very clear technical differentiation. That means which is just not there in the others. So instead of just being like X times better. So this is something we very much focused on, having a qualitative moat. Whenever we build startup, we say having a moat, right? Moat over others. But usually the moat is quantitative, but we focused on having a qualitative moat. That means something which we have. And I know you want a very concrete answer, so I can lay it out for you very quickly. So there was a rush for building like AI software engineers. That means an agent which will act like a software engineer and also enhance security of the code. And most of the technologies would focus on like some of the activities that a software engineer does, like going to a website, going to a tool, maybe going to Stack Overflow and so on, going to some online communities. But most importantly, a software engineer is also doing a lot of thinking of what could be going wrong and thereby kind of preventing the security issues. So this thinking about what the software is supposed to do, this was absent. So this is not a quantitative moat. You can quantize it. You can say it is more effective in doing these things in these benchmarks. But most importantly, it is qualitative. So we focused, I'll not take too much time from my fellow panelists. So we focused on a qualitative moat. I think this is the most important thing. We always try to have the maximum impact. So again, it would translate to things like, for example, you can sell things to a company which will use it for their internal usage, but then you would just have impact on that company. Instead, we sold it to a company whose business is to work with 400,000 enterprises. So then immediately you can impact all of these thousands of enterprises. So we focused on the maximum impact. And the third thing, which I think often as founders we don't do, is the messaging. Messaging, not our messaging, but when your startup is acquired, this has to be passed in the board. So what message will they give so that your startup is acquired? That's important, right? So if we try to think about that and help them along that, okay, this is the messaging that can be useful for your company, and put that in the pitch, then I think things will be accelerated. Yeah.
Great, well, excellent. Thank you for that. I think, in fact, if I'm not wrong, the whole acquisition process started from a tweet.
Yes.
You want to just share what do you tweet about?
So we were actually working in stealth mode before that. And we only tweeted because we saw that offerings are coming out. So therefore, we thought that it's very important to tweet at this point of time. So we essentially talked about this particular technical differentiation that can be provided. But we have to give, one has to be pragmatic. We have to give also quantitative numbers, etc. How much productivity gain, how much cost gain, etc. These things were also included in my tweet.
Oh,
yeah, cannot be an idealist.
Gotcha. Well, thank you. So basically balancing, what I hear is balancing qualitative with quantitative numbers, and being savvy about what you tweet or put on the digital sphere helps a lot. Now, let's talk about what happens when bioprogramming goes wrong. And we have Professor Dario Campana, who basically can fix yourself through engineering your own immune cells to fight cancer. Right? And he has truly been phenomenal for our ecosystem, having taken companies public and also start a company, Medisix, in Singapore. I'm very curious how you, as a clinician scientist, managed to develop all these different technologies that have been licensed and attracted big name VCs to fund and spun them off as spin-off companies out of a lab.
Well, thank you, Ben, first of all. But I think what Prof. Alberto was saying this morning in the keynote lecture is a key factor, right? Luck is a major thing. We didn't start working in the immunotherapy area thinking that this was going to be a wonderful way to commercialize our research. We started working in this area because we felt that the standard treatment of children with leukemia, the previous institution where I was a pediatric oncology center, was just inadequate. And we had to try something completely different that wasn't chemotherapy developed in the 50s or 60s. And so I became interested in this concept of engineering immune cells to direct them against cancer. And I really didn't know how to do that. I had no idea. I was working in a completely different field. But for a number of lucky circumstances, a group of people came around to the lab that had the expertise to do that. And so we started working on that. And so our first entry into this field was to develop this receptor that you mentioned. And we were super excited at that time. But nobody else was, because at that time, this was very niche type of research. Probably there were 4 or 5 labs around the world interested in this. And no really physician was really interested in that, and let alone investors or pharma, right? So we struggled to publish our first paper. I think I submitted like 6 or 7 times, and I had to convince very hard our patenting office, not NUS, the previous institution, that this was worth having a patent. And then this patent was licensed to Juno Therapeutics, was acquired by Celgene, acquired by BMS, sub-licensed to Novartis, and became part of this first cell therapy product approved by the FDA. And currently there are 7 CAR T cell products approved, and 5 had the signaling cassette that we had developed in those early studies. When I say we, myself and my research fellow, Chihaya Imai, who's a pediatric oncologist from Japan working in my lab. So after that, there was again, a lot of indifference, but after a while, some clinical studies emerged by others, primarily the University of Pennsylvania did a lot of work with our receptor at that time, and then published results on 3 patients, and that triggered this great enthusiasm about cell therapy. And so on the wave of that enthusiasm, then it was quite easy to start 2 or 3 companies because there was really great excitement. And the technologies that we developed after that, they have benefited patients anyway. So to me, that's still the main goal, right? It's not so much the company's success, which obviously helped, but it's really how many patients can we cure. And fortunately, it has been positive in that sense.
Thank you for sharing. I think it's truly amazing. In fact, actually, I think one of your patients actually is now a student at NUS. And then there was a huge story recently, right? And in fact, one of the UK boy who came to Singapore to be trialed actually is now going to high school already. So, I think the impact is lifelong. Well, thank you for bringing these technologies to market. So let me now direct a question to Huilin. Right, I think she's a great colleague of mine, and we joined NUS about the same time. But she's obviously on a fast track of solving a personal problem, right? So Huilin, I'd like you to maybe share a little bit about how your family's dementia based on what I understand, and my research shows that it inspired Sunbird Bio's start. Right? Could you maybe share what was that particular scientific discovery that you developed at NUS that has now led to its $14 million funding success?
Thanks, Ben, for having me. So My family had personal encounter with dementia. So I really wanted to contribute to this area. And I'm a biophysicist and bioengineer by training. My key research topic is very much focused on diagnostics. And the devastating news of neurodegenerative disease also means that there's very limited treatment. And this is also accompanied by the fact that typically disease is diagnosed much later, which means that everything that you're going to see from that point onward has declined. So, from our research at NUS, we found that there are ways that we can actually uncode the messages of neurodegenerative diseases directly from blood by looking at these small lipid bubbles that are released by cells, and these can act as sponge to really pick up the disease proteins that are early messengers for neurodegenerative diseases, which means that we now have a mechanism that we can detect the disease earlier and also having an idea about the molecular nature of neurodegenerative disease. And this basically seeded Sunbird Bio. We managed to get interest from VC, and with a group of trusted founders, co-founders, that's how Sunbird was born. And very fortunately, we are able to work in this really interesting area and making a very impactful contribution to this disease and to the detection and therapeutics of neurodegenerative diseases.
That's great. I think personal motivation pain points always form the strongest motivation, right? So thank you for doing that, and having seen my own family members struggle with this condition, I certainly hope you succeed in the wildest possible fashion, so more people can have access to your technology. So I'd like to turn our attention to Professor Tu. So Professor Tu, it's been a 20-year IPO journey, I understand. So your company, Meraxus, went public at a 1 billion plus valuation after almost 20 years of research. What do you think were the key inflection points between when you first started your lab and the technology becoming now a public company?
A lot of people think that you do entrepreneurship because you choose to do it. Actually, we're accidental entrepreneurs. What we did was basically a thought in a lab, a curiosity. We discovered something. We developed an assay detecting early diagnostics for cancers. We didn't know the significance when we started. Then what drives us is essentially, you may not believe this, is that we need money to do more research to bring what we have in the lab to the patient. That was the real driving force for us. So today, it has been a very long journey, 20 years. It sounds a long time simply because what we have done very early on was that we do have bias very early on. But then we evaluated what they have done, and we realized a lot of things that we have in Singapore are undervalued. So after another, we refused to budget from the day we started, and one after another, we just keep building. Today, we're now bringing all the way to the patient. In a few weeks' time, hopefully, NMPA will approve our product in China for GastroClear for gastric. But we have a whole bunch of things coming in. You will hear more. So what is it that pivots us? Number one is that born of curiosity. I would encourage scientists to continue that. Don't just do things for the money. Do things because you love to do it. Then from that, we realized what we needed was money to do the work. Now then, we have a person over in A-Star called Tani at that time. He believed in us. It is very important for the university to really back up your people. That took us to the next step after that. Then we have other people, investors, that begin to believe in us. It's a very long journey. In healthcare, that's the way it is.
Thank you. So the inflection point was finding champions that believe in your technology and having a strong base of support from the university. Okay, who are the funding agencies here? Anyway, well, please remember that. Thank you. So I'd like to just have them flash the QR code for the questions because I don't see questions coming in yet. Okay, so not yet. So I'll continue asking questions. We have another 15 more minutes. I'd like to maybe change the tag for all of you, any one of you here, to share your thoughts. So this is a cross-panel part. So I believe all four of you have chosen to incorporate and commercialize your technology in Singapore at some point, or you have started here. What do you think that is unique about Singapore that can help deep tech researchers, and I'm sure there are many of us here, that other ecosystems may lack? And what do you want to see more of in Singapore for deep tech startup founders like yourself? Yeah, anybody feel free to grab the mic.
Well, to me, one really distinctive feature of Singapore is the emphasis on translational research. I came here because I got this Singapore Translational Research Award, which is really a unique type of grant that doesn't really exist anywhere else. And that has supported my research for over the last 14 years here. And this is a grant that allows you to establish a lab, that allows you to explore different things, think out of the box, with an emphasis on translation, right? So translation is valued. It hasn't always been like this in medicine. When I was younger, the cool thing to do was really do basic research. Translational research was seen as a kind of second rate, not really academically or intellectually that challenging. And, because I came from medicine, this has always been my priority, right? To translate something to the clinic. So that's number one. Number two, also the support that we get from NUS is phenomenal. I mean, just look at this building and the interactions that we had with the patent office here and the technology transfer has been really extraordinary over the last few years. And then the quality of the students that we get is also outstanding. So I think that creates an environment that facilitates translational research, but hasn't really always been like this. So when I first came, our first company, we wanted to start it in Singapore, but there was no incubator available. VCs were just simply not returning our calls. And so we had to start in Cambridge, right, in Boston. And the same for the second company. The third, with Medi6, finally, there was a bio incubator available, and there were VCs interested in funding it. So there has been definitely an evolution, and I'm sure there will be even more as time comes. So those are really unique features, I think, of Singapore that facilitate entrepreneurship.
Right, so very focused government support, consistent investments. Right, thank you. Anybody want to add? What do you want to see more of? I mean, we are definitely not far from perfect as an ecosystem, right? And there are many people here that might be able to influence the evolution.
Yeah, I think I agree with all the points that Dario mentioned. I think we do have a lot of emphasis on translational research. There's a lot of support, encouragement. As a result, for example, if a professor is really interested in seeing the real world impact of her work, it's quite, I think it's quite manageable for them to kind of view this. They don't see it as a hurdle. What we could see more of, I think we already see it today. For example, one thing, I have been in this university for 25 years. So one thing which was not there earlier, but we already see it now, is earlier we wouldn't distinguish between the different sectors. So for example, in life sciences versus tech, just the journey of a commercial entity is very different. So with the fact that we are talking of these three tracks, logic, matter, pulse, I think that's already great. One thing I can just share from a personal experience, I used to be the advisor for a few years. I was the only professor in an entity called the London Office of Rapid Cybersecurity Advancement. That's more like taking in, every year they would take in cohorts of cybersecurity related startups, and the entire effort they would put together like bankers, venture capitalists, professors, and also maybe industrial researchers, all to advise those startups so that they can convert to scale-ups. So it's very thematic, and the entire goal is to go from startup to scale-up rather than to startup. So we are very good in starting up, and that's really great. We are also differentiating in the sectors. We could probably focus on how to go to scale-ups. Just a thought.
No, that's great. So 0 to 1 seems like easy now for us. Maybe 1 to 10 or 100 is the next question mark. Okay. Great. Any from Huilin or Prof too?
I'll just add on to something I think the previous folks have spoken about the local ecosystem. I think part of the ecosystem is about our people. We actually have a very talented body of students, scientists, and very passionate as well. Something that I wish to see more is perhaps that risk-taking attitude coming off from Harvard, MIT, the Boston side, right? You will see that when you are speaking to a class, it's almost very difficult to keep the class quiet. But in a local environment, people are hesitant to show that they are inquisitive. They are probably thinking about whether I'm asking the right question. Am I making a bad impression, right? But the ability to take that risk, right, and showcase yourself, I think that's something that I wish to see more. And I have to say that that's improving. That's improving as the moment that we are speaking. I'm seeing more and more among our students.
Yeah, great. Yeah, we have already 9 questions.
Yeah.
Whoever wants to use the mic, feel free. I'll hand the mic over to the audience very soon. Any Prof too? Anything to add? There's a long sigh.
I'm
We have
going
a
to
lot
be
more work to do.
I'm going to be politically incorrect here.
Please.
All right. After 20 years of pain, I think what is brought up is very true. Today is much better than before. And I hope going forward we become better, right? I'm the chairman of the company as well, all these many years. And I've seen what a capital market looks like out there versus what we have in Singapore. We are behind, technology-wise, capital market. We must have the humility to learn from others. That's one thing we have to do. Now, what is it that we can do better going forward? I think, like you've just brought up, that we now see a lot of startups. That's great, but there's following up. There's a difficulty. It is in the newspaper. You can read it. The amount of investment in Marexus locally is embarrassing. Ours is international. We have the US investors, Chinese, everywhere, except Singapore. So what is missing? Essentially, there is a big gap of understanding of the investors here, of risk-taking, right? Now, I talked to the ministers about this as well, and they're aware of it. It's not that we don't have a lot of rich people, we have lots and lots of it, but we don't have the understanding, they don't have understanding of how to invest in this area. So I think the university can do a great job by educating many of this, right? And play the capital market. Now, that is something I think we have to grow into. I think we have a lot to learn.
That's right. Oh, thank you for that, Prof. too. Honestly, I was doing some research. Singapore actually has $4 trillion of wealth being managed. And that has grown more than 10 times in the last 10 years. Right. So I think we certainly have a lot of wealth, and I think I resonate. When I did fundraising in the US, it was so quick. We got several million in less than a week, and the money's in the bank, right? So I hope, who are the VCs here? Any VCs? I know what is VC, Klaus. So there is a real demand here for great technology, and NUS hopefully is your first port of call, or Singapore in general. So now we have questions. I would like to give the opportunity to somebody who wants to actually use the mic and speak. Anybody want to just go ahead and blast off so that we start to see what Huilin was talking about, the risk-taking appetite? Anybody? I'm sure somebody wants to say something. Okay, please.
Yeah, questions for Professor Tu. So what's the single factor that make you list your company in Hong Kong rather than in Singapore?
Yeah, so why do you list in Hong Kong versus Singapore?
Oh dear. Actually, we have been approached a number of times to list in SGX. We're not dismissing it. I've met the CEO a number of times. And frankly, Marexus is a homegrown, right? The people inside, the CEO and so forth, all from my lab. We should be very proud because it's a totally homegrown company. The difficulty is SGX, at that time, still don't quite understand how to value our company. Not because they are out to get us. I think it's just lack of understanding. We explored everywhere. Geopolitics is a main dictating factor as to where we go. So don't be surprised one day we'll come back to SGX, right? So that is totally open, provided the market itself be able to sustain what we like to do. Hong Kong is vibrant. I just came back. I mean, every other week I'm there now. You see that these guys, they understand, they're very sophisticated. They understand the nuances. When you go for 18A, that's what we go for. They're not looking at your revenue. In Singapore, they look at your revenue first. They look at the promise ahead of us. Now, when we started, what we work on, the diagnostic kits, we didn't know that today we're emerging as one of the leading companies in the world. Who would have guessed? I wouldn't have. But this is something that these guys who are sophisticated can understand. They're not looking straight in front of us. They're going to look way ahead. So I think that's why we have decided to go for Hong Kong. Hope we answer your question.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing. I mean, these are some of the things potential founders really want to think about, right? And I hope our ecosystem will develop very quickly to support more listings, dual listings even in Singapore as well. So, okay, there is a question that has a lot of votes, so I'm going to go with that first. This is questions to all of you, any of you. What are some approaches you took to find the right talent to join your company, either as founders or as first members of your either technology team or business team? Were there approaches to find? I mean, everybody, and Huilin mentioned talent, right? And that's the number one thing we care about. How do you get your first people to join, to go behind you, support you?
Yeah, I think there's just one word: camaraderie.
Camaraderie.
Yeah. The belief that we share and the willingness to work together, even though that when things seemingly look bad, right, and you have to keep on being faced with a lot of challenges, you still take these approaches, right, and take these steps together and enjoy these moments together. So I think that camaraderie is very important.
Camaraderie. How do you build camaraderie? Can you just elaborate a little bit? Is that through your research?
It's a very good question. So it's not only that technically we're complementing each other, but I think it's also personality.
Okay.
Yeah. So all of that comes up as a very united team, and therefore I said camaraderie.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anyone else want to add? Abhik or is it Dario?
Well, I'm not sure about other founders because I was the sole scientific founder of all these companies. But to echo what Prof. Tu was saying about the shortcoming of Singapore, I think one difference that I found between the companies in the US and here, that in the US, especially in those science hubs like Cambridge or the Bay Area, it was very easy to find very highly qualified people in a leadership position. For example, for therapeutic companies, you need chief medical officers and their team, you need a regulatory expert, et cetera, et cetera. And this, we just don't have many people of that caliber in Singapore. We have outstanding scientists, so there was no problem in having scientists in the lab and do R&D, but to reach that level of understanding of how to write a clinical protocol and how to overcome all the regulatory obstacles has been difficult. And these are not things that you just can create overnight, right? They develop with the development of more and more companies here, and it's a progress, right? But we in that sense, I think we are behind.
Got it. So the ability to find the right talent at the right level of sophistication seems to resonate, certainly.
Yeah, maybe I can just add something. So the general quality that we would look for is that whether they are forward-looking. So in fact, in student mentoring, PhD student mentoring also, I always take this philosophy, where somebody is coming from that is much less important than where they can go to. So when we are developing effectively an effort, like essentially commercialization is an effort, it's very important to take in people who are forward-looking, who would try to partner whenever they try to meet a stakeholder, they will try to see what they can do with them, rather than all of the past history, etc. That's important. Having the homework on the stakeholder is important, but they should also see the prospects, and the people should be the initial founders, they should be forward looking. I even recruit my students this way.
Okay, great. Is there a question you asked them at the interview?
I would try to find out whether they are
Okay.
forward looking.
No, I see. No, that's a good point, right? So you need to find, if I summarize, you need to find people who know escape to where the puck is going, not where the puck is at. Right? And I think that's something that maybe all of us should start thinking about if you're running a research group that you're thinking of spinning off. Right? Any other, now next question on the floor, anybody has other questions? Anyone? Okay, no, so then I'll just go down to the next highest voted question. So when all of you have decided to spin off at that time, if you can just think back, maybe the most recent startup or company, what was the hardest part? Transferring the science, building the team, or convincing early partners and investors? Seems like all of the above. Anyone wants to just take a stab at it?
Well, you've pointed all the right things. The team is hard to build. Investors I've just talked about is hard to get. And my advice to everyone is don't wait, be a cockroach, don't die easily, and then get out of Singapore. So our investments is a lot outside from here. We have a lot of centers everywhere around the world. We get talent from anywhere in the world. So once you build a company to a certain size, maybe initially you're small. So I've got another startup just started on stem cells. My case is that I have my students who know the subject much better. They grew up with me, like what Huilin was talking about. They know where things are going, and they have the hunger to go. So as a professor, what I do is to share this with them. It's not about me, it's about us. So when I have enough us, then we can move. So the challenges are real. Getting a team as we grow. Marexus have been through, my goodness, a lot of pain, right? Ups and downs, and people come, people go. That's the way it is. So everything you said is right.
Yeah, well, in Chinese we call cockroaches little strong. I don't know if it's direct translation for those who get it. So you have to stay strong, keep fighting, right? That's kind of what you're saying. Yeah, don't die. Anyone else want to add to that? So it seems like you said building team seems to be the priority for you. Anybody else want to counter that about it? Is it always team first, or is it the investors first? There's always chicken and egg, right? If you don't have the money, how do you build a team? I'm sure this is a struggle many of us find.
I think the team is, of course, very, very critical, in fact. The messaging is quite important. This moat that I mentioned earlier, that having a very clear differentiation, because you only have so much of people's time. Yeah. So when you meet somebody, you will only have very little time that they will have for you. So very quickly, in a very short time span, if you can show the differentiation, and they can think that, why didn't I think about this? So having an articulation of the differentiation, and this goes back to the morning keynote. I really liked that aspect of it, that it's not just 10x, 5x, but what exactly is it building and how is it different? And why from first principles it is imaginative. I personally think that's quite important. Yeah.
Great. Of course, you also have to throw a bit of luck into it. Professor Dario? Yeah.
I'm thinking about all this. I feel that being able to identify investors that are as passionate about the technologies you are is a critical thing, because this is a very long journey, right? So if somebody just consider this as one of the many things that they are doing, and maybe they can make quick buck quickly, it's not going to work really. I mean, at that time you may feel flattered that somebody actually wants to give money for your research. It's so unusual, right? That somebody actually wants to support your research at that level. But I think we have to go beyond that stage and really be very careful and identify those who are truly passionate about this technology. They really feel that technology is a real breakthrough, is going to change, in our case, the practice of medicine, and feel as strongly as that. If not, I think in the end, it's going to be not as nice of a journey.
Got it. So that shared vision and mission, critical, right? Huilin, you want to add something?
I just have one more thing to add, and I second everyone who has spoken. I think the key idea is that you're going to encounter all of these challenges. In order for the company to take off, the key idea is not to do all of these challenges at the same time, but sequentially try to address these challenges, right? So that you give yourself time, you give your investor time, and as a team, you'll be able to move forward. So all of these are excellent questions. You are hitting in the right spot. You are going to see all of these challenges, hopefully not simultaneously.
That's right. So, okay. So, thank you for sharing. And I think probably one last question from the audience, and I try to wrap up. I know we are slightly behind time today, right? For those who are you standing, feel free to get a seat, right? Don't worry. Anybody wants to take a step at the mic, just in case, because I always like to give that to the audience if possible. Anybody want to ask any questions live? Okay, no. That's the problem. Sometimes you have digital tools, everybody's hide behind it. Anyway, so I think this question is quite interesting, right? And I think it's for all the researchers here, they are questioning about, or what are really curious about, where's that turning point when you start to see your research move from theory in the lab to translation or to the commercialization path? Is there a very clear boundary in your experience? Because there's something many researchers often struggle with, right? When do you start thinking about translating? When is enough data enough?
Maybe this time I can get started. So I think it can be quite gradual. It depends very much on how you set up the culture in your research group. If the culture in the research group is quite publication oriented, then it will not be gradual. But if in the culture of the research group is really focused on discussions, that essentially, whenever you are working on a research project, the entire goal of the professor and the postdoc and the students, all of them is just to convince each other that why this is new, why this is really novel from first principles, and what is the actual value of it, and how it is really different from the existing technology and how it will translate. So if this exercise is built into the research, then I think the shift is much more natural. And it's kind of, it goes by common sense also. If this is the way you structure the research, then the step to innovation and hence entrepreneurship will be more gradual rather than a switch flip.
Got it. So you have to inject this commercialization angle early before starting.
The discussions itself bring that.
Got it. Anyone else? I mean, software, I know it moves at the speed of light, as some of the speakers say, but I mean, biotechnology, cells, I mean, those are much harder, right? So where is that point where you start thinking about it?
In life sciences, we move at the speed of turtle. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it gives, okay, maybe snail. Yeah, I don't know which one is faster. A snail is even slower, maybe. Yeah, so I think that gives us a lot of time, right, to really think through the process. Speaking from experience, when I interact with students and interact with research fellows, for students who want to go into academia and become professors, it's actually very difficult to convince them to embark on a project that's focusing entirely on translation. On the other hand, for students who want to become entrepreneurs, right, and they want to do startup, they will not be going into a project that focuses mostly on just publishing. So at that point, you can already know that you should adapt to the talents and make sure that you are giving them the right project, the right support, so that they will be fulfilling in different ways. And in terms of commercialization, I think as researchers, we sort of have some ideas about which are the projects that are most likely to be translatable and which are the ones that will result in just very, very fancy technology development and paper generation. So I think the key goal in this way is really identifying the right talents and giving them the right environment, the right challenge, and the rest of it, I would say that thankfully we have an excellent team and our students are very terrific and exceptional. The rest of it will just let nature take its own course.
Okay, got it. Thanks. Anyone else? Two.
Oh, me again.
It's tiring, I know, right? 20 years.
I mean, my distinguished guest here, right? I mean, I'm the other end. You know, like I said earlier, the first thing, the reality is, I wrote a grant very early on, based on the technology, to MOE, and it got rejected.
Right.
The worst thing they've done is to make sure you die by saying it's great science, but right. So frankly, in my case, right, when do we know it's commercialization? The reality sets in, and we realize if you want to do something and you want to share it, where else can I go? And there were pockets a little bits on at that time on commercialization, and that's what the reality is that drove me there. And since then, it just went, snowball from there. So I'm not like our distinguished guest here. Sorry.
No, thank you for sharing. That's why NUS Enterprise is here, by the way. If you ever need support for kind of thinking about this, publish or perish, we are here to help you think through this, right? And so I think we're coming out of time. So I'd just like to end off with perhaps a very short word from each of you on your next big idea. There are a lot of VCs here, right? I see many of you. I think collectively there must be billions already. Yeah, they're holding billions, right? Ready to fund your next venture. Many of you already have great track record, right? So can you just share what is the next big thing you're working on in a very short pitch? If not, at least a very good advice for anybody that might want to do it. So maybe I'll start with Professor Dario.
Okay. So we know that with cell therapy, we can cure cancer, at least some type of cancer. But there is a problem with cell therapy. The manufacturing of the cells is very complicated, it's very expensive, and that's really the bottleneck of this application. So I think what I would like to do is to take everything that we have learned from cell therapy and do it without cells. That I think would be a great advance and can really change the practice of medicine. So that's where I'm working on at the moment.
Exciting. Well, we're ready to fund you with $150 million. we already given you an award, so I'm certainly sure it will be put to good use. Professor Abhik?
Yeah, thanks. So I'm looking at agents which can heal code bases and can produce security audits and even fix the results of the security audit. So to give a very short pitch, you are looking for anti-money laundering check. You say, is anti-money laundering, has it been checked? And it will turn it into lower level checks. It will produce an audit, and it will even produce the fix if needed.
Great. Get your checkbooks ready. So yeah, Huilin?
Oh yeah, I work in the area of molecular diagnostics. So I do a lot of nanosensors, physical nanosensors, meaning chip-based, or molecular diagnostics, meaning that molecular nanotechnologies using proteins, nucleic acids, to build them into machineries. So we are able to address a lot of challenges in clinical diagnostics, and I think there are many, many opportunities where we can lead to real impact. But before I end here, I want to say that I think the ecosystem is definitely improving as we see more and more VCs coming to Singapore. So for our budding entrepreneurs in the audience, I would encourage you to start, right, and really do it rather than hold yourself back.
Great, thank you.
We spun off another company beginning of last year, and now is escalating. All this is based on experience from Mirexis, the pain we've been through. So it's faster than Mirexis. It's on stem cells. I'm sure everyone heard about stem cells, right? So we have a technology born in NUS where we can modify the cells, putting genes in like CAR T, but don't use viruses. And it's first of its kind. And we've been curing dogs. A lot of dogs. Dogs have no option left in cancers, solid tumors. And now we're going to translate that into human use. We're going to start a clinical trial, hopefully by early next year, for brain tumor. We are now putting together with the neurosurgery department. So we work on stem cells. And Mirexis, the tagline is, to know is to act. That means you know what's in your blood, then you can act on it. This is a sequel to that. To act is to save. Thank you.
Great. Well, I'm looking forward to the third act. Well, thank you so much. Can we give a big round of applause for our panelists today? I think they're phenomenal sharing. Thank you again. Shall we have a photo?